You may have hundreds of images in your solution, and it can be a daunting task to keep track of your images. Fortunately, Tangora gives you a host of tools to keep tabs on your images, and in this video, I'm going to show you the basics of using the image archive. Specifically, I'm going to show you what information that you have for any given image, both information that is intrinsic to your image file, such as file size, as well as information that you can assign the image, such as a category. And then I'm going to show you how you can browse your archive using these various parameters to find just that image or that group of images that you want to access. By the way, we're going to be using a tool in the process that you'll meet in many other contexts called SmartView. So what you learn here, you will also be able to use whenever you want to find data of any kind in Tangora Manager. First, let's take a look at how we could customize the way our images are presented to us in our image archive. So I'm in Tangora Manager in the Archive section under Image Archives. And what I can see here is that there are a bunch of images with a bunch of information. The very first thing I want to show you is that there are varying ways in which you could display your photos, and you control this here under the Display Mode setting. So if I wanted to switch to large images, you could see that we all of a sudden have quite a different interface. Now, if I wanted to browse through my photos, I could use the navigation that I have up here at the top. There are 20 images shown on each page, but in most situations you'll find that searching and sorting will be the way to go when you have a purpose of finding a specific image or taking stock of a group of related images. But let me switch back to the Details view again, and I want to point out that each image has a set of data attached to it. There are headers up here at the top, and we could see here that, for example, a given image has a category, a name, a format, a size, width, etc. These headers are so-called SmartView headers, and I could customize my view by using these headers. First, let me right-click in my bar, that'd be Control-click for Mac users, and what I get now is an overview of all the possible data that I could display. And there's a check next to those headers which are visible. I could add or remove headers by clicking on them. So for example, I could remove format, and you can see it disappears then, and I could add status or date of change. Incidentally, status shows you at a glance if your image is in use by the system, and you also have the option to manually lock images that aren't registered as used by clicking on the padlock icon up here in the blue bar. The next thing I want to show you is that you could change the order in which your headers are displayed. So let's move date of change next to name. You could also adjust the width of your headers by dragging on the divider bars. So now we've seen display modes in SmartView and how you could use these tools to customize the way that your images are presented, including what attributes are displayed. But this is just the start. Where it really gets interesting is using SmartView to control which images you want to display. To put it another way, we're going to use SmartView to search for an image or a group of images. With SmartView, you could search for images. Now you have a general search bar up here, which will search in all fields, but you'll get a quicker response and more precision with your searching with SmartView. Here's how you do it. Let's say I wanted to find all the images in a given category. I position my mouse over the category header, and then you can see a little triangle which appears in the right-hand corner of my header. I'll click on it, and here you'll see that I could choose among the various categories, which you'll also notice is organized hierarchically. Let's take a look at the category called Sponsor Logos. But that's not all, because you can combine your searches. So let's say I'm looking to find all the images in my sponsor logo with Apple in the name. I just have to hover over my name header, and then in my filter I could just type in Apple, and here we could see the results. Another thing you could do is sort your data based on SmartView headers. So say I wanted to view my images by date. If I click once on the header, my data is displayed in ascending order with the oldest image first. If I click once again, then my images are displayed in descending order. We've been using the Details display mode here, but you could also switch over to another display mode and still your SmartView settings will apply. In fact, you can continue to work with SmartView. Another cool thing about SmartView is that for each user in Tangora Manager, Tangora remembers your settings. So say you're working back and forth a bit between your image archive and your Pages section. If I hop over to my Pages area and then come back to my Archives area, then we'll see exactly what we saw when we left off, and this is a great time saver. I can, of course, cancel sorting and filters And also if I've searched with my general search button up here by clicking on the cancel links here at the bottom. By the way, down here you also have information about how many images are currently displayed in the archive. Okay, so now you've seen how SmartView could be used to search for images, and you've also seen that you can use it to sort your data, and you've seen that the settings are automatically saved and can be easily reset. Now I want to shift gears. I want to give you an overview of some of the other operations that you can perform in the image archive, including copying, editing, and deleting images. I've already showed you the display mode options, and now I just want to review what you otherwise can do with an image. Categories brings you to an interface where you can create your own categories, and Upload will allow you to upload images to these categories. I'll delve into these topics elsewhere. Properties will give you access to an image's details, which I'll come to shortly. Edit allows you to edit an image, and there are a host of functions allowing you to change your image's dimensions, as well as adjusting your images and adding effects. Copy just makes a copy of the image, which is a really handy feature if you need the same base image in different aspect ratios or dimensions or something along those lines. Replace allows you to switch out the actual image file, but otherwise leaves the image's possible usage and metadata intact. The lock, as I mentioned earlier, allows you to lock an image if the system hasn't already locked an image based on it being put in use by the system. Delete will delete an image, but you'll have a chance to change your mind along the way. First, you get a standard "Are you sure?" dialog box. Then, if you say yes, and your image is not locked, the image will be deleted. But if the image is in use, another dialog box comes up telling you that the image is in use, showing you where it is in use, and asking you once again if you're sure. Archive Properties gives you access to the archive's name, as well as some access settings. And Archive Info gives you an overview of the images in your archive, as well as how much file size is being used. I've just given you a rundown of some operations in your image archive. Now I want to turn again to the subject of image attributes, this time regarding how you could access the detailed view of an image in order to change some non-intrinsic attributes. Now I want to discuss the data that you have on any given photo. At this point I'm still using the Large Images display mode, and take a look at what happens if I select a given image. I get a bunch of information about the image down here at the bottom of the screen, including its file size. And if I selected more than one, then I could see the data which the selection of images has in common, as well as a combined file size. But now let's access an image's properties, which I could do by selecting an image and then hitting Properties, or by simply double-clicking. Here we have much of the same information that we get via SmartView, but we also have the ability to change and add some information. We can see the file name, and right below there's the label name, which is technically called an alt tag, which is what the image is called to screen readers, which are used by visitors with visual impairments, and incidentally by search engines. So you could just leave this as the default, which is the image's file name, but you could also add a very short description to the image, which could be an element in helping your search engine optimization strategies. The next point is category, and the categories in question here are the categories which you create yourself. And here in the detail view, you can change your image's category. I'll save the topic of creating categories and uploading images for later, but for now I want to point out that categories can change the look and dimensions of your images. Width, height, and size are self-explanatory, and then we come to the Used In point. If your image is used, you get a list of where it is used. Otherwise, the system tells you that it's not in use. Description is for your own internal description of the image, so it won't be included when you show your images on pages in your site. And then we have a visual representation of your image in full size, as well as a thumbnail version of the image, if the category to which the image belongs includes the option of generating a thumbnail. We've just gone through some of the fundamental skills that you'll need to get the full use of Tangora's fantastic image content management capabilities. I've shown you how to get an overview of the properties of your images, and I've shown you how you could use these properties to find a given image or selection of images. And the tool we use to do this, SmartView, will be relevant in many other contexts in Tangora. To really master the topic of images, you'll also want to learn how to create categories, upload photos, and edit photos. You'll also want to be able to use photos on pages, in layouts, and in conjunction with special functionality via the various Tangora modules. Thank you for watching.